Good evening. Welcome to Flooding Prevention through Stormwater Management. This is a 2018 photo of deep standing water on Route 53 near Lisle after heavy rains drenched the area. Many communities reported basements flooded. The precipitation raised elevations in Salt Creek and the west branch of the DuPage River, enough to trigger operation of the Elmhurst Quarry, the Falwell Dam in Naperville, the Armstrong Park reservoirs in Carroll Stream, the Wooddale Itasca Reservoir, and the Spring Creek Reservoir in Bloomingdale. Our featured speakers tonight are Jim Zay, who's been a DuPage County Board member since 1999. He is also chairperson of the Stormwater Management Committee and the DuPage Water Commission. Ms. Sarah Hunn is director at DuPage County Stormwater Management. She has a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering and oversees flood control and water quality projects countywide. Mayor Franco Cola Di Pietro is a former Illinois House representative and board member of Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. In 2018, he was named DuPage Mayor and Managers Conference Governmental Leader of the Year. He has spearheaded revitalization of Lake Street, Army Trail Road, and Gary Avenue business centers. Most important, he seeks ideas and feedback on local issues and initiatives. We'll begin by introducing you to recent developments at Argonne National Laboratory, more specifically their Center for Climate Resilience and Decision Science, with Bloomingdale-specific projections. Then we'll have an overview of DuPage County Stormwater Management Program, including its current operations and recent grants. Last, Mayor Cola Di Pietro will share information on the Bloomingdale Stormwater Management grants and other developments that will help avert flooding threats to our community. In November 2021, we hosted Professor Don Wubbels, internationally renowned climate scientist, and he informed our local league that we have three options to respond to climate change: mitigation to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, adaptation to reduce the adverse impacts of climate change, or suffering. Given a global average carbon dioxide new record high of 414.72 parts per million, Professor Wubbels pointed out that mitigating suffering can only be achieved by doing a lot of mitigation and a lot of adaptation. This presentation will focus on adaptation to our community's most significant threats, flooding and water quality. While we understand climate change as a global issue, we experience its impacts locally. Local impact on infrastructure is especially critical because infrastructure impacts really everything from our cell phones and internet service to getting electricity and clean water in our homes. We are truly blessed to have Argonne National Laboratory, which is the U.S. Department of Energy's Science and Engineering Research Center, right here in our backyard. Its new Center for Climate Resilience and Decision Science has a singular mission: to increase the resilience of built and natural infrastructure systems to the impacts of a changing climate. To do that, however, decision makers need access to climate projection data at the right scale. Argonne scientists have successfully used dynamic downscaling to produce this hyperlocal data. By combining the application of local climate projections and the decision sciences, they can help our local governments and local businesses make these risk-informed infrastructure adaptation decisions. In addition, the center also conveys governmental and business adaptation needs to climate scientists to help inform their research priorities. I'd like to highlight two key center projects. The first is a joint study that Argonne completed with Commonwealth Edison that focuses on how changes in Northern Illinois' climate might affect our power grid. And the second project allows anyone in the country to type in their home address and receive climate projections for their surrounding area. To demonstrate, I'll type in the address for the Bloomingdale Village Hall. So you can see it gives a specific report for our area on temperature, precipitation, wind, and resilience. We're going to look at the precipitation report since we're talking about stormwater management. So over here in the mid-century precipitation analysis, it tells us that historical annual total precipitation in our area is 42.44 inches, and that the projection for mid-century is 46.25 inches. That represents a 3.81 inch change from the baseline. Now, this doesn't sound like a lot, but I'd like to point out that a large percentage of a year's precipitation can fall in a major storm event in a single day. In 2022, Newton, Illinois recorded 14 inches of rainfall in just 12 hours. Stormwater events tend to more adversely affect urban areas, which are more heavily paved and less able to absorb water. Now I'd like to turn it over to our featured speakers. Jim and Sarah are going to go next with a review of DuPage Stormwater Management.
Great, thank you, Donna. I really appreciate it, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. Obviously, this is an important topic, something that you had talked about. We see more and more because of climate change, and that, as we used to talk about in the old days, we would get a 100-year flood every 10 years. Now we seem to be getting a 100-year flood every 3 years. So it's very important. And stormwater management plays a lot of that. Now, I've been honored to be, I've been on the county board for 24 years, but I've also been the chairman of the Stormwater Management Committee for the last 21 years. So I take stormwater management and flooding very seriously, because we all know how devastating it can be when water starts falling from the sky, and there's really not much you can do at some point. I want to do a little overview of our Stormwater Committee. The Stormwater Committee is actually one of the few joint county and municipal committees we have at the county. We have 6 elected county board members from each county board district, and then we have 6 appointed municipal representatives from each district, from each county board district. Those are selected by the mayors in those districts. The Stormwater Management Committee, we are funded by the property tax and the general fund, and we have approximately 40 full-time employees. And I do have to say, I think from working with our staff, we probably have one of the best, if not the best, stormwater staff in the state of Illinois. And we've been recognized many times for that. We can talk about a little bit about our regional stormwater management and our program areas. Our watershed management, we have our watershed and water quality planning. We oversee construction and maintenance of projects and facilities. We have a water quality department where we have to follow the Clean Water Act compliance. That is something that we've started. We'll talk about a little bit later. We have our floodplain mapping, our GIS to map floodplains countywide. I think a lot of people realize that we go back, things change, and we go back and map our floodplains. And we've had a huge reduction in our floodplain insurance throughout DuPage County because of the efforts of the committee and our staff to make sure that when we've seen a lot of change, obviously in DuPage County over the last 25, 30 years with development and a lot of new stormwater facilities, not only for the county, but municipalities and townships that all work together and help us with that. Then we have our major one you hope you don't have to use is our operation and maintenance. We run our flood control operations and our flood forecasting. I want to point out, when everybody's going to sleep and at times our staff is up 24 hours monitoring our facilities. The old days we'd have to send people there. Now we have cameras on site, and we can now open the facilities via their laptops. And if there's a problem, we can make sure we don't have somebody out there, and that these facilities are being opened when they need to. We also have the regulatory wing of the stormwater. That's where we do countywide permitting for developments affecting our stormwater runoff. Once the stormwater the stormwater plan was passed, we had a lot of people building things right on rivers, streams, creeks, which didn't make a lot of sense back in the 70s, 80s. And they couldn't figure out why they were flooding. Well, now as DuPage has been built out, we have a lot of properties that are left that have some kind of stormwater issues. They have wetlands on them. They have other flooding issues. And we want to make sure that someone doesn't build something in their municipality or their area and is pushing the flooding down to a adjacent a property owner or a adjacent municipality. So that's big for us. And then we have wetland management. Wetland management is big for us. We do have banks they can pay into when we have flooding, and those wetland management areas actually do help with a lot with flooding during big events. Then we had our shared services in our unincorporated area. We just took over a couple of years ago the unincorporated residential drainage program. Our public works department used to run that, but I think it made sense for our engineers in our department to take that over and work with our unincorporated areas, our highway commissioners, to get drainage programs in those unincorporated areas that don't have, mostly storm sewers. They just have ditches and drains. So we took that over. And then we have all our other countywide stormwater projects and initiatives that we work on. We've built out a lot since I've started. We've built probably over $100 million worth of projects, and we continue to look where we can continue to help people flooding and have new projects throughout the county. One of the biggest things we started is our water quality grant program. This started back in 2000, where we have $300,000 a year. We awarded approximately $6.3 million to 108 projects. Every year we go out and send this out to municipalities, townships, park districts, anybody with water quality projects, even homeowners associations. And this goes for water quality. We pay up to 25% of those projects, which honestly, some of those smaller projects, if that money wasn't there, the project probably wouldn't be done at that point. So it helps with our water quality. It helps us with our Clean Water Act for DuPage County. And then it actually then helps all of our homeowners. The recent grant award we have right now with the Homeowners Association in Bloomingdale. So we can see it's just not governments and everyone else who's getting money. We do have options for homeowners associations. Anybody that might have a water quality program out there, we can work on that. The big thing that's happening right now at the county is the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA. DuPage County was allocated $179.3 million. The county received its first $89.6 million in 2011. And one of the major parts of this funding was spelled out was stormwater and water. So when we looked at it, the county only has so many problems. And we only had so many projects ready to go. So at that point, I think the mayor will tell you later, the floodwater doesn't know boundaries by municipalities or townships or where it goes. So we had some projects that we had in the hopper, but we also had a lot of other projects that we could get this grant program going and help our municipal members, our township members, that they already had shovel ready to go, and that we could qualify them for. And we set up a program. Our staff did a great job setting up a grant program. We went through many applications, and we got a lot of money out there, and it's helping a lot of projects. I know Bloomingdale got some. We try to divide all those projects up by each county board district to make it fair. And it's really been a great thing. We're helping flooding. Like I said, flooding doesn't care. The water doesn't care if it's going from Bloomingdale to Carroll Stream or Carroll Stream to Winfield. It doesn't do that. So we're really proud of that. And Sarah's going to talk a little bit more about the ARPA stormwater requests and all our projects.
Sure. Thank you, Jim. And Jim is exactly right. It's one of the unique struggles that not only the county, but all the communities have, is that, Bloomingdale may be getting water from north of them in Cook County, or east or west, depending on which part of the watershed or which watershed they fall in. And it usually falls squarely on the municipality or the community to address their stormwater issues. And even as a county, for our regional program, we have to look at looking across multiple entities. And so as Chairman Zay mentioned, we only had so many projects that were shovel ready and projects we could get designed and in place in time to qualify for funding under the ARPA funding. And we didn't want to bite off more than we could chew, honestly. We went through all of our capital requests that we've been sending to state and federal legislation for a number of years. and came up with a internal capital project request of about $13 million, which is pretty robust for our program to do in approximately 3 years. That includes design, permitting, and construction. And the map behind shows our major program areas based on the type of project. Some of them were stream bank stabilization, some are actual flood control or storm sewer revitalization, and some are water quality projects. And you can see that they were spread countywide, so we were very fortunate with that. In addition to that, knowing that each municipality in DuPage County received ARPA funds, we reached out to DuPage mayors and managers and talked to them about a project coordination grant match. And with that, we were able to allocate up to $500,000 per project, or 50-50, whichever fit the project. And the project had to qualify for ARPA funding. And so that meant that it had to address stormwater management, either by meeting the Clean Water Act requirements or being flood control. The county board actually allocated $8 million to the department for this funding request. But it turned out pretty convenient that our staff request, after evaluating all the grants, came in just a little over 8 million. So we were quite lucky. In addition to the municipal grant program, we also had a township grant program. The township grant program was designed a little differently. The townships don't have major infrastructure quite to the scale that most of the communities. And so we did look at 100% of funding up to $100,000. And if we had availability for higher funding with the $1 million allocation, we did allow that. And again, they also had to qualify for ARPA funding. And again, we were quite lucky that our grant request came in very close to what the county board allocated to the department. And so going through our process, we're again very lucky. As Jim mentioned, he's been the chairman of the committee for over 20 years. And so we had a lot of leadership from the top on how to get this program out and the right way to do it. And honestly, we prepared this program just like any state or federal agency would, and making sure everything was taken in fairly and judged fairly, which is good because we were actually FOIA'd by 2 different law groups on our whole process, and nothing came out of those FOIAs. So we were quite fortunate with that. We did receive 31 applications for a funding request of 9.6 million. Two of the projects didn't meet the ARPA qualifications. And one of the projects was low ranked in that it wouldn't have been able to be constructed or shovel ready in order to meet the ARPA timeline. And so we did move forward with, I believe, 28 projects with 17 municipalities, and presented our ranking and evaluation to the Stormwater Committee for approval. And as you can see, all the projects that were submitted were indeed countywide, which is always a win for the entire county, knowing that issues across the county are being addressed with an infrastructure program. And so here is the total of what we came up with. And again, the Bloomingdale project is shown in there as well, but I believe the mayor is going to talk about that a little further later in his presentation. We were very lucky that committee did approve our recommended funding of $8.09 million, as well as the county board, so we could move forward with our ARPA projects. To date, we have spent $4 million of the $8 million, and we look forward to hopefully spending that other $4 million, and this is out of our grant request program from the municipalities this summer. And again, we're very fortunate in that just by the county investing $8 million of county or federal funds, pass-through funds, we're able to look at $48.5 million in infrastructure to improve stormwater management throughout the county. That's an incredible win. When you team that up with our own funds plus the township funds, we're looking at over $61 million with a $22 million investment in an infrastructure. And a huge win. Maybe not the best investment for my future, in that I rely on being able to manage stormwater. But I can sleep better at night knowing that we do have a lot of these projects that are going to convey stormwater and get them out of people's homes and out of the streets and into the rivers and creeks and wetlands where the water belongs. And so that does conclude our presentation. And again, very fortunate, and we are grateful to the League of Women Voters to have us here to talk about what we've been able to do under the leadership of the Stormwater Management Planning Committee.
Thank you so much, Jim and Sarah. We're going to share the screen now and have Mayor Franco go next. Okay.
Thank you, Donna. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to be here today. We wanted to discuss Levitt Pond, which is probably a good case study for a project that happens and how important the county participation is with our municipalities in terms of getting these projects done. So, first I want to start by thanking Chairman Zay for his leadership on the Stormwater Committee. This project in Bloomingdale, it may not get done without the county's participation. This, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the project, but this is a $600,000 project. And, for a community like Bloomingdale, we're a community of 22,000 people, $600,000 for what we're doing there, that's big on our balance sheet. And, and when you consider all the projects that we have to do in terms of EPA regs at our water plants and replacing aging water lines and all sorts of big ticket items, it's nice to be able to do this project for the community. And it's not, it's not just about the stormwater aspect of it. There's other aspects of it too, which highlight the, the governmental intercooperation that we have in doing this project. And what I also want to thank my staff, take the opportunity to thank my staff, because look, I joke around that I'm just a pretty face. I'm here to represent the community and provide leadership on what we're doing. But, we have amazing staff that evaluate these projects and monitor these issues. We're a complete waiver community, which means that we have the responsibility of implement. Well, the county gives us the opportunity to have the responsibility of implementing all of the stormwater regulations. And it's a huge responsibility, and it's a responsibility that we take very seriously, because, that's something that helps us with our development to be able to keep that in-house. And, so that's something that, that responsibility that we guard. And when you look at Levitt Pond, so in its overview, what's happening at Levitt Pond. So Levitt Pond is it's bounded by a number of residential developments, and it's an integral part of this stormwater management for these subdivisions. So obviously you're going to get sediment that flows as a result of this drainage. This sediment builds up in the pond. Okay, so what are the natural effects of that? So you get this sediment buildup. Okay, you can't retain as much water in the pond. And now that's going to adversely affect how that water runoff happens. But in addition, and these are the other kind of tentacles of what happens that we're going to be able to remedy with this grant, is that, so in addition to, so you get the sediment buildup, our aerators get clogged, we have to go out there and we have to, we're spending expense and time on that. You get algae growth in the pond, excessive algae growth. What is the direct cause of that? That adversely affects the fish population in the pond, which then results in fish kills. So there's a number of things that happens as a result of this stormwater event and the result of that stormwater event. So what we're going to be able to do with that grant is to go into that pond. So we're going to remove that sediment in the pond. Now, part of that sediment we're going to use, so there's a soccer field that's adjacent to the pond as well. So we're going to use part of that sediment to level off that playing field. The rest of it then will be disposed of appropriately. And then in addition to that, we're going to so we're dredging out without getting into the weeds of it, 2 sections of the pond, and it's where the major work is happening. And so then in those disturbed areas, we're going to go back in and plant native grasses and vegetation in those areas. That's going to result in cleaner water, a more vibrant pond. And then in addition to that, we're going to put up some educational signs at the pond that then talk about, what are the grasses that are there, why are they there, and what are they doing? So, we're tying in addition to fixing that stormwater problem, which is obviously the root problem and the biggest issue, we're able to do some other things there in terms of restoring that area a little bit, and then providing a little bit of education for residents who go to the pond, and then, we'll walk around that pond and spend time there. There's also going to be some limestone cropping that's going to go in there, which is just there to beautify it and, promote activity around the pond, which is something that, we're working with the Park District as well. And it's, is something that we want for our community. That's, that's one of our charges at the village is, we talk a lot about, you look at our village budget, and we spend all of this money on a lot of things that people never really see. And, they know that we're doing it, but they don't really see it. So it's nice sometimes to be able to do a project and to have something that people can actually touch and feel and see and now learn from and, and experience. And really this project all in all is a huge win-win for our community. And, again, so, and given the large, given the large dollar amounts, and I'm a kid from Joliet, so these numbers never get small to me. I see, when I see numbers like $500,000, $750,000, you see these types of numbers to do these projects. It's always impactful to me, how we find the money to do these projects and to be able to do them. And so, again, thank you to Chairman Zay and to the county for, in terms of working with us and providing the funding to help us, get that project done. You want to move on to the Indian Lake slide. So I provided 2 more slides that just kind of, again, highlight how we're doing projects that have multiple that have multiple results in essence. So everyone in town knows that the Indian Lakes golf course was closed, and then they tried to build 500 houses on it. The village was able to acquire this property in order to keep it as open space. And so we're now in the process of having 200 acres, which is really, when you think about how sizable that is in the middle of our community, we were looking at how are we going to utilize this property. Now at the south, we had already owned the 35 acres at the south end of the property. And there are some flooding issues on Cardinal Drive, which is at the south end there. So we had developed a flood mitigation plan for that south end. It's a $4 million project that has been developed and is ready to be implemented to alleviate that flooding in that area. With the acquisition of this property, and now there's a new hotel ownership group that's coming in, we had partnered with the ownership group to revitalize the golf course in a public-private partnership. And that's the design that you see in front of you. And what it is it's an 18-hole golf course, about 7,000 yards for people who golf, and that matters to them. And it reinstalls a driving range. There's a 9-hole par 3 there, as well as practice holes in that area. But what we're going to do is so now we have the opportunity with that stormwater project is to integrate. So what we were going to do previously was essentially to build large ponds and wetland areas for the storage of the water. So now what we're able to do is now integrate that stormwater detention in a way that complements the golf course. And essentially what it's going to be is an aesthetic feel to the golf course. And let's say that there's a hole that is a par 3 hole on an island of water, but that island of water may be what we're using to mitigate the flooding in that area. So again, just another project that we're able, to work two uses together to complement each other in terms of achieving that stormwater result. And then if you want to go to the Stratford slide. So this is the first time anybody's seen the Stratford slide, because my State of the Village is tomorrow, and this is when I was going to roll out this slide and this update. But the reason why I'm showing you this slide is again, this, just so you know what it means, the color coding on there is just who has ownership of different parcels at Stratford at this point. So anything that is in yellow, the village has control over, and the orange is the group out of New York that owns the mall, and the Kohl's. So Kohl's has a piece, and we're working with them on the redevelopment, and then the bluish piece is the Sears piece, which we have under contract now. So when NAMDAR had purchased the property, we asked them to give us, what is your vision for this area? And that was in 2019. And it's 4 years later, and we haven't heard anything. So we decided, okay, you know what, we did an entire project where we brought in consultants, we went out into the community, we created a website, we got community feedback on what they wanted to see in that area, took all of that information. Okay, now let's just put together, what could the vision be for this? And this is just one of the initial ideas of that vision. But what you'll see in there is you'll see a huge pond. And that pond is not necessary for the development of this project, because it's already been factored into with the existing mall and the buildings that are there. But what we're able to do, since it's such a large area of impervious land, and and given the fact that maybe we have calculated to take into effect all the stormwater needs of this property, we're looking at we're looking at creating this centerpiece of this area, and what better way to do that than a water feature? So there's going to be this central water feature there, which again is going to allow us to have dual purposes: improve stormwater management of that property in terms of not having to worry at all now about any future issues, well, knock on wood, hopefully any future issues relative to that. And in addition to that, it's an aesthetic feature of the property that is going to be striking as you enter into the property as well. So just another project. As we go through this process, we'll probably, maybe I will now, because I did this webinar, talk about the stormwater aspects of it. I probably never would have talked about the stormwater aspects of the pond. It would have just been that it's this lifestyle feature that that people can go out and enjoy and use and experience. But that's, again, just another example of integrating that into our planning and our thought process of taking Bloomingdale into the next 100 years. You know, and then if I can just get on my soapbox a little bit, everyone can just help us out and do all of the things that are on this slide. We put this in, Donna was kind enough to pull this from our almanac and put it into the presentation. But, you know, all of these little things help us. And it's just being cognizant to do these things and maybe taking an extra 5 minutes of your time to do that. But, you know, if we can keep the storm inlets clean and we don't necessarily blow our leaves out into the street as opposed to bagging them and, you know, taking care of them in the proper way. I mean, we do have a street sweeper now, so that does help us with this, but any little bit that the residents can help us, you know, it helps the village in terms of the maintenance, but it helps our community, and it helps us to be good stewards of Bloomingdale. And as always, and this is something that goes, I tell people this, it goes for any issue that you have in the community. If you see something or if you have a question, call us. And if it's something that, you know, we can help with, or if we can remedy, we will do that, or we will explain to you why we do certain things like that. Do not go to Facebook and post, because I can't see every post that goes on Facebook, although I try. But, you know, always feel free to call our public works or our administrative staff, because, you know, we're glad to, we're glad to answer any questions and help with any concerns that happen in the community.
Thank you so much. I do want to, before I take questions, I just do want to thank all of you for being our featured speakers tonight. Thanks to the DuPage County Stormwater Management team, not just the two of you, but your whole staff of 40. That's very impressive for preventing flooding of our homes and our community and preserving our water quality. And thank you to Bloomingdale Mayor Franco, officials, and the staff for demonstrating principled service to residents. I also wanted to point out that the Bloomingdale just received again that it's a tree city, and that urban forests play an important role in climate change mitigation and adaptation. We're going to go to questions, but I do want to state, just in case some of you have to leave, that this presentation will be available on the League of Women Voters website. So feel free to recommend it to others in our community for their later viewing. Okay, our first question, I think, was directed to the county. So either Sarah or Jim. So the question was related to the impervious rules, given that we're expecting, you know, more rain in the coming years. Do you expect to change the impervious rules? I think they're currently at 25,000 square feet for retention pond and 2,500 for new development.
So thank you, Donna, and Donna did prep me with this question. And so the impervious rules were updated in the DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance when we did the full rewrite and final approval of it it started in 2013, but then the final approval in 2015. And most of those rules were surrounding best practices for impervious areas. In addition to the impervious calculations, we also do require areas to incorporate best management practices. So in addition to detention for impervious areas, we require soft best management practices, which not only capture stormwater, but treat it, which is good on both sides of stormwater management. At this time, we don't see the county as a whole going through and updating or reducing that pervious area requirement for detention. But I do want to note that any community could opt to do that. They can always be more restrictive than our stormwater ordinance than we are. Again, we've done a lot of calculations. And one thing I will note is that although the impervious area was 25,000 square feet of net new impervious area, also during this whole process in 2019, the state of Illinois updated, the state climatologist updated the precipitation data. So even though we're looking at providing, we're not changing the impervious area, more detention is required to be provided because we have adjusted the rainfall estimates for our storm region.
Yeah, and if I can add too, first time I saw that slide, and I can't congratulate the mayor enough. If the redevelopment of Stratford goes forward, those calculations for impervious are already put in there, so they would not have to put any detention in. It's already been calculated. But seeing Bloomingdale go above and beyond by putting more detention in there is only going to help the communities of Bloomingdale and surrounding there because of the impervious area at Stratford that we all know will run off quickly. And they didn't have to do that, but that just shows their priorities there in Bloomingdale. And we can't thank them enough for that because, like you said, it's going to be a great attribute there for the redevelopment, but it's also going to be a place for people to go. And it's going to help not only with flooding, but it's also going to give a sense of community, which is great. So congratulations, Mayor.
Thanks, Jim.
I know another question was related to, I believe those Lake Street county overlay for zoning. I'm not sure if I'm asking this question correctly, but I think that's like countywide, trying to make more consistency with the zoning of Lake Street. Is that right, Mayor Franco? And is that related in any way to stormwater management or?
So the Lake Street project is it's a joint effort by Bloomingdale, Roselle, and Hanover Park to just bring some consistency to the zoning in that area. We've been working hand in hand with the county on that and got a grant from CMAP to do that study. But the stormwater aspects of that is not a major component of what we're trying to accomplish at this point in time.
Let's see, this one says, how do we get this is for the county team. How do we get recognition from the stormwater team when our city doesn't help us? For 35 years, I've asked for stormwater support for Springbrook Creek and still no action on our flooding issues. So I don't know if I don't know where that Springbrook Creek is. So I don't know who can address that maybe.
I'll try to take a stab at it, and really the county and the city do work together on many things, and they have over the years. And I'll talk about the city engineer who just retired, who had a great relationship with the county and brought a lot of local interest to us to discuss. As far as Springbrook Creek, we do have the Springbrook Reservoir that we operate to assist the areas of Medina and Bloomingdale. And then we try to offset the flooding issues with the operation of that reservoir. And in addition to that, we are working with the city and, as you mentioned earlier, Donna and Jim, local groups on water quality improvement grants, which help with infiltration of flooding areas. And so we do try to help, but we can always, if you have an interest of meeting with the city and you'd like stormwater staff there, we can do that by invitation of the city, or village, I should say. But the village, in our opinion, has done a pretty good job of managing stormwater through the years, through their strong staff and strong leadership.
Yeah, and we're lucky. I mean, I've been around for a while, but I can tell you I have a great working relationship with the mayors, not only in District 6, but throughout the county. And if there's an issue, I mean, they know my number. They can pick up the phone and call me. And honestly, I can't remember a time where we've had a disagreement or there's been a problem where we haven't worked together to solve a problem together. So I know we're always there to help. And again, we've got a great relationship. We never have, many issues. Sarah and I have been out in many areas, walking around in our boots and looking at areas. So yeah, just let us know and we're here to help.
Thank you so much. We have 6 leagues in DuPage, and one of our members is saying, if there's any way that you can think of for our leagues to support your stormwater management efforts, if there's anything you'd like us to share in our newsletters to our members, please let us know. So if there's anything you think you'd like us to convey, we would love to assist you in these important efforts.
Thank you, Shefali. And
Thank
we do have a new communications person here on staff. And so perhaps you can meet with him and we can brainstorm some ideas of what we can do, either a standing piece in your newsletter or maybe just a one-time effort.
And I think what you saw Bloomingdale doing, just reminders and communication. I mean, the staff knows, it drives me crazy. You know, people are saying, well, the street flooded and did this, but, you know, it had, you know, 3 recyclable bottles in it and 4 pounds of grass clippings, and there's only maybe a third of the grate open and the streets flooding. So just reminders of people that things happen, and you know, help when you can. I mean, Bloomingdale, what they're doing, we see this all over, where we have retention ponds where developments have been built 25, 30 years ago, and they're supposed to hold enough water for a 25-year storm, but I'm sure there's 8 garbage cans in there and soot and everything else, and then, you know, it doesn't function anymore. But we don't know that, we can't see that. So you got to call your municipality or call the county and say, hey, you know, every time it rains, it could be easy enough of us just going in, televising it and clearing it out. There could just be a blockage in there, that something's blocking the outlet or the inlet, and it's easier known. So communication, if there's an issue, please let us know, because if you don't tell us, you know, even though we have 40 staff, it's a huge county, we can't get around to everywhere. So anything anybody can do to help, you know, just with these normal, you know, small reminders, goes a long way.
Well, thank you all. We're so appreciative. Oh, did you want to say something? Nate?
No. I was just going to echo what Jim said. You know,
Okay.
many hands make light work.
Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of our speakers. We're truly appreciative of your time. We know how busy you are, and we really appreciate the information you shared with us tonight. So thank you all so much. Good night.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.